delighted to send you that information about Canada. Thank you for calling. Goodbye.
May I speak to Mr. Arthur Hicks, the consul, please?
Do you have an appointment to see him?
Yes, my name is Bill Herbert.
Oh, you're with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation?
That's right.
He's expecting you. He's on the phone right now, but you can go right in.
Thank you very much.
Canadian Consulate General.
Oui, lundi soir. C'est une exposition des travaux d'artisanat canadien. Oui, oui. Excusez, Charles, je peux vous appeler dans une demi-heure. Oui? Au revoir. Pardon me. Pleased to see you, Mr. Herbert.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hicks.
I understand that you are interested in discovering how a Canadian post abroad functions. And frankly, I don't think you could have come to a better one than Los Angeles.
Well, we're all very happy to be here in warm, sunny Southern California.
Well, you've chosen an appropriate time to come to sunny California, too, because we're in the process of introducing our newly arrived Consul General and his wife, Mr. and Mrs. George Patterson, to leading people in the community. Indeed, tonight, my wife and I are giving a reception for them. And we would very much like you and your staff to come.
Well, thank you very much indeed. We'd love to be there.
Now, before we look at the functions of the office, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Patterson, whom I know is anxious to meet you.
What do you know about Los Angeles, Mr. Herbert?
Well, very little, Mr. Patterson, except that I do believe the city limits extend all the way up to the Canadian border.
Well, it certainly seems that's the way sometimes when you're out trying to look for a place in this great city. However, as you probably know, we also have offices in San Francisco and Seattle.
So you've got that one taped all right.
That's right.
How are you making out on the freeways?
Oh, boy, I think before I can qualify to drive on those freeways, I shall have to take one of those astronaut courses.
Mr. Patterson, what's the basic difference between the Canadian Embassy in Washington and the Canadian Consulate General in Los Angeles?
Well, Bill, I think that could be described in very simple terms in this way. The Canadian Embassy in Washington is located at the federal seat of the United States government. And the ambassador, the Canadian ambassador, his officers, other officials are dealing with officials of the United States government on matters of mutual interest to the two countries. And that includes a wide field such as political, commercial, economic, military, and others. Now, in the case of the Consulate General, we consider ourselves more or less as a branch office of the Canadian Embassy, but we're dealing in more local terms with a region of the United States in matters of particular concern to Canada as affected by that area of the United States. Now, that involves such things as the normal consular duties, immigration, issuance of visas and passports, looking after of distressed Canadians. And in this connection, I might say that we have around 250,000 Canadians or people of Canadian origin in this area of the United States. In addition to that, we do a lot of work in connection with tourism, passing out information to the schools on Canada. And, of course, what must be stressed is our trade relations with the United States insofar as they're related to this area of that great country. This is a very important part of our duties in this office. However, Bill, I think if you would like to see the boys in action, you should visit around with the officers and members of my staff, and then you will become fully acquainted with all of the aspects of their job.
The best way of introducing a new head of post to the greatest number of important people at one time is through a reception. This one organized by the former acting Consulate General, Mr. Hicks, at his Beverly Hills home. Miss Corinne Griffith, star of the silent movie days. Brigadier General and Mrs. John T. Honeycutt, Commanding General 47th Artillery Brigade, Fort MacArthur, California. There are more than 40 consulates general and consulates in Los Angeles, whose county has a population of over 6 million people. This is one of the busiest and most thriving communities in the United States. Tonight, we have leaders in the community, the mayor and others. We have heads of the churches, we have heads of banks, leaders in the business world, commanders of the regional military establishments, officers with the U.S. Departments of Immigration and Customs.
I'm very happy to see you. How are you?
Here we can expect official representatives of groups such as the Cercle Canadien Français, the McGill Society, the English-Speaking Union, the World Affairs Council, the Women's Canadian Club, the Daughters of the British Empire, the Canadian Legion.
Well, after the joys of the evening come the mundane tasks of the next morning.
That was quite a party.
Good. Well, here they are. Paper and what seems like large masses of it, but it's pretty well routine in consular offices. The nature of our work invites a lot of letters. We have travel activities, information activities generally. Trade, of course, is a very important facet of what we do. And this brings this sort of thing that has to be dealt with.
One day's operation.
Yes, pretty well. That's right. Here, by the way, is a more specialized side of our activities. There, for instance, are 185 documents, each individual one of which has had to be stamped with our consular seal and signed by myself. These are for introduction, by the way, in the courts in your own province, British Columbia.
Oh, why do they have to be stamped and signed?
Because Canadian legislation and Canadian law lays down that documents originating abroad, which are to be introduced into Canadian courts, have to carry, or should carry, a consular seal, a Canadian officer's consular seal, and the consul's signature before they can be admitted legally.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Now, of course, there is another facet or side to our activities that takes up a lot of our time, and that is the issuance of passports. Oh, by the way, Mr. Patterson asked me to tell you that he did not really mean we issue visas. We issue passports at this office. In that connection, it reminds me that Mrs. Dalton is seeing a visitor now about a passport.
I would like to go to Mexico, but I didn't know whether I needed a passport or not.
Are you a Canadian citizen?
Yes, I am.
Oh, yes, then you do need a passport. And the first thing to be done is complete these applications. They must be completed in duplicate. Do you have your birth certificate with you?
Yes, I do.
Good. Are you married?
Yes, I am.
And you have your marriage certificate?
I think I have it with me.
Well, if you don't, we could wire the province where you were born and get confirmation. Now, we'll need 3 photographs of the type described in the instructions. You can have them taken nearby, and the fee is $5. Now, part 4 of the application, a declaration to be made by a guarantor. Is there anyone here who could act as your guarantor?
Well, there's my uncle.
No, not a member of the family. Anyone else?
There's my uncle's lawyer. I've known him for several years.
An attorney would be excellent. That's fine. He will complete this part of the application, both copies. And that's all that's necessary. If you'd like to take these home with you and return them to us with the documents and the photographs and the fee, I can have your passport in about a week. Is that acceptable?
Oh, that will be fine. Thank you very much.
Not at all.
The Los Angeles Consulate has a fund of non-public money contributed by local Canadians for Canadians in distress who do not qualify for assistance from official funds. A case in fact, this letter.
Dear sir, today I received your money order payable to myself for $5. I'd like very much to thank you for your kindness. Believe me, Mr. Hicks, it is very much appreciated. Life in jail is bleak and dreary at best, but without any money at all, it is very uncomfortable, to say the least. Once again, Mr. Hicks, many thanks for your kindness. Please find and enclose your signed receipt. Yours sincerely.
I joined Vice Consul Honor Curry on an outside call concerning a deportation case. What's the background on this particular case, Miss Curry?
Well, Herb Williams is a 17-year-old boy who had a fight with his family and came down into the States as a visitor. He got himself a Social Security card and got a job and was eventually apprehended by the U.S. Immigration. So he now faces deportation proceedings, and I have come down to see Mr. Davino to see if we can arrange voluntary departure.
Well, Mr. Davino, what's the difference between voluntary departure and deportation?
Mr. Herbert, when an alien who is in the United States in illegal status and is apprehended by the United States Immigration Service, he is granted the privilege of voluntary departure unless there is some criminal background or some other derogatory information which makes it statutorily desirable to deport him. Now, in the case of Herb Williams, has the consulate been able to obtain satisfactory arrangements, make satisfactory arrangements, Ms. Curry?
Yes, we have wired his family in Canada and have received sufficient money to buy a non-refundable bus ticket. That means, Bill, that he can't cash the bus ticket and spend the money down in this country.
In this case, the United States Immigration Service will grant voluntary departure to Herb Williams, and he will have no stigma attached to any further additional application for admission to the United States. His record with the United States Immigration Service will be a clear one.
Members of the Kiwanis Club of Los Angeles, guests of that great club, fellow Canadians, I'd like to speak for a moment on the development of Canada. A little over 10 years ago, we acquired a little more territory. We took into our community of provinces the oldest British dominion, Newfoundland. However, although we took her in as our 10th province at that time, and she became part of Canada, not by conquest, but by her own free will, I can assure you that we have no additional territorial interests, so far as I'm aware. And that includes, of course, taking over the United States as an 11th province. And if I may say so respectfully, also I do not believe that there is any prospect of our becoming your 51st state.
After the luncheon, I met Margot Franklin in Pershing Square, a park just a quarter of a block from the consular offices. Margot told me that this luncheon speech by Consul General Patterson was the first of many he will be making as head of consulate, attempting to create a greater awareness and understanding of Canada and things Canadian in this third largest American city. I took this opportunity to talk with Margot about her work with the consulate. That must have been quite a hockey game between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Boston Bruins here in Los Angeles.
Oh, it was wonderful, Bill. I had a marvelous time because I hadn't seen a hockey game in years, and to make matters even better than ever, we won.
Margot, what compensates for living abroad?
Well, there are many compensations, Bill. As a locally employed personnel, I receive my salary tax-free, and we have a pension plan which has been instigated for the locals, and it gives you a great sense of security to know that you have this behind you.
Are you a civil servant?
No, I'm not. I'm locally employed. I was employed by the Department of External Affairs in San Francisco, and I worked in the Canadian consulate there for about 9.5 years. And then when I wanted to make a change, I decided I'd like to come to Los Angeles, so I transferred down here. And I've been here now about 2.5 years.
What do the girls who are sent out from Ottawa get?
Well, their position seems to be even better than mine. They have a rental allowance, and they also receive a cost of living allowance.
Now, I wonder if you'd tell me about your own specific job in the information side of the consulate operation. What do you do?
Well, I'm in the information section, and this to me is a very important part of the office work. We deal with school children and the teachers. We also have a film library. I should go back to this. Our film library, we have about 250 films, which we loan out to various organizations, sporting clubs, church groups, and then also to the schools. And this dealing with the schools is also in conjunction with an information program we have. We give the teachers a teacher's kit And the students in grade 5 and 6 who are learning about Canada also receive a student's package. As a matter of fact, Bill, we have a group of about 42 students and their teacher coming into the office in about 5 minutes. We're going to show them a film on Canada and give them a little talk on Canada, and then they'll meet Mr. Patterson, the Consul General, and some of the other officers. I think we should go if you want to meet them.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
The Consulate has been very active in working with the school boards in its territory of Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Southern Nevada. Tours are arranged for students making use of audio-visual aids, such as phonograph records, film features, and strips, and so on.
In 1857, it became the task of the young Queen Victoria to select a city that would be the capital of Canada. It had to be easily accessible to both French and English, and so the Queen chose Ottawa.
Mr. Hicks told us the best way of spreading information about Canada throughout this area is to start with the 6th and 7th grade school children, to whom courses about Canada are given. The Consulate distributes thousands of school children's kits and teachers' kits, which are supplied from Ottawa, and which are warmly received in this area.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Collins, why has the Department of Trade and Commerce expanded its operation in Southern California?
Well, Bill, there are a number of very good reasons why they have done so. Retail trade, for example, in the metropolitan Los Angeles area is now rated as the 2nd largest in the entire country. As far as wholesale trade is concerned, I believe they're rated 3rd after New York and Chicago.
Where do you fit into the consulate picture?
Well, my principal job is to assist Canadian manufacturers and exporters in finding outlets for their products in Southern California.
Do you have any examples of the type of product that you're selling for Canada?
Yes, indeed. There are quite a number of samples I could show you. Morita?
Yes, Mr. Collins?
I wonder if you'd mind bringing in those samples that came in this afternoon?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. Here are 2 other items we received recently. One is a unique type of leather conditioner, and the other is a liquid soap. Oh, thank you very much.
Which one would you like? We only have the 2.
Well, they both seem to be very well made. Doesn't make much difference. Examine that, Bill. Tell me, did the firm send down prices and an invoice?
Yes, they have sent an invoice along with the boots.
Oh, fine. Thanks very much.
Good.
How about lumber, Mr. Collins?
Well, you're talking about one of my favorite subjects now. As a matter of fact, I have a luncheon engagement today with the executive vice president of one of the largest furniture manufacturers in California. This firm, by the way, are presently buying roughly $250,000 worth of Canadian birch from Canada. I was wondering if you'd care to join us for lunch, Bill.
Oh, indeed I would.
Wonderful. That'll give us a good opportunity to discuss this in greater detail.
A difficult part of this job was encouraging Canadian business to make more of an effort to sell in California. Mr. Collins contended that freight rates from Eastern Canada do not price Canadian products out of this market. Henry Brandler, executive vice president of a furniture company, confirmed this.
That $250,000 figure, Charlie, is very conservative. I believe there are more realistic figures at $500,000.
Well, Henry, what do you think Canadian firms should do to sell more in this area? What recommendations do you have?
I tell you what, Charlie, we feel that business goes where it's invited, and I honestly feel that more of the mill representatives should come here from Canada and acquaint us with the facilities that you have up there for cutting lumber.
What specifically do you require from Canadian suppliers?
Well, Bill, we are major users of maple, of birch, of ash, and elm. In fact, within 2 weeks, we intend to send our purchasing agent, Mr. Gill, up to Canada. And thanks to our good friend Charlie, he's outlined an itinerary of some interesting mills in Canada that will be very helpful to Mr. Gill when he's up there.
Well, Henry, what do you think Canadian lumber mills should do to increase sales of their lumber products in this area?
First, I would like to mention that business goes where it's invited. And I feel that the Canadian mills should have better representation down here. I believe that they should let our factories know what is available.
How about payments? What is your normal method of payments to Canadian firms?
Well, we can be very helpful to some of the mills in Canada by working with them through an open letter of credit.
Oh, you mean you guarantee payment in Canadian funds through a Canadian bank?
That's absolutely right. And I might also add, it might be of some interest to you, that we would also look very favorably on helping some of the mills put in some modern streamlined equipment so that they can be in a position to manufacture dimension stock for us the way we want it manufactured.
Well, that certainly
and according to our own specifications.
That certainly should be a big incentive.
Well,
plus the fact, of course, Henry, as you know, that there's no U.S. import duty on many items such as glued up stock, which these fellows buy in very large quantities.
Of course, that's very helpful too, yes. There's no reason why we shouldn't do a big job with Canadian mills. You have the lumber, you have the know-how, we'd like to do business with you.
One of the important functions of staff who serve Canada abroad is assistance at exhibits, receptions, and so on outside regular office hours. Canadians living abroad attend these functions to keep in touch with Canada and fellow Canadians also away from home. One of them, Ottawa-born actor Lorne Greene.
Lorne, I bet you're pretty happy about the Ottawa team winning the Grey Cup, huh?
Bill, if you weren't a Westerner, I'd be cheering right now. I know you must have been crying all afternoon.
Oh, yes.
Having been born in Ottawa and knowing that my team won, what was it, 16-6? Tremendous score against Edmonton in particular. I must say that Edmonton had a great team.
They had a very good team, but there's a very good team down here, too, you know, at the Canadian Consulate. And what I want to know is, what happens about the association with Canada with a fellow like you? You know, you're pretty high in the American broadcasting business, and all of a sudden, are you an American or are you Canadian? You know, do you still retain your Canadian association?
Matter of fact, I do. I've even retained my Canadian citizenship so far. And particularly at functions such as this, meeting the new Canadian Consul General, Mr. Addison, and meeting all the Canadians who are resident in Los Angeles, particularly. I get a great kick out of meeting some old friends, well, for example, such as yourself. And after all, we've had many years of association together in the past. And to me, it's a thrill and a very nostalgic thing to come back in a foreign country, meeting Canadian friends, hearing of things Canadian, and meeting with people who are from Canada, resident here, working here, and bringing the Canadian way of life, I suppose if you can call it that, to a place like Los Angeles.
Do you see many Canadians at the studios?
You know, it's kind of interesting. There are so many Canadians. Very often, I think at every studio I've worked at in Hollywood, 2 or 3 people have come up to me and said, "You're a Canadian." I said, and I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, I was born in Vancouver, or I was born in New Westminster, or in Winnipeg. Of course, I came here many years ago, but they still hang on to the fact that they were born in Canada, which I find kind of interesting because they're kind of proud of the fact. And they, for example, today I saw Arthur Hiller, who was the producer with the CBC. Lloyd Bachner, with whom I worked very often in Canada, is now living here in Los Angeles, working on a television series. Joel Aldrich comes down very often to work here. David Green, who worked in Canada, works here very often. I can't think of the names at the moment, but there are so many. I think about 25% of the so-called film colony in Hollywood is of Canadian origin in some way or other.
This exhibit is the first of its kind attempted by the Canadian Consulate in Los Angeles. It's a prestige show. Its purpose is to demonstrate to Los Angelinos trends in Canadian architecture and also to show them some of the fine examples of Canadian handicrafts.
Well, on the right here, Lorne, you have a fine piece of Canadian architecture in the BC Electric.
It's a beautiful building.
One of the nicest I think we've ever seen. And here we have the Ottawa City Hall.
Well, that's the new one.
That's right. One of the nice pieces of architecture. It overlooks the Ottawa River.
I remember the old one. It was pretty horrible.
The consulate receives many inquiries from Canadians about their citizenship passports, missing people in Canada, but the great majority of letters and questions received are from Americans. These have to do with trade, with customs, and with travel. Questions coming from those industries concerned with modes of dress and ways of life in Canada. A great many Americans migrate to Canada each year, approximately 11,000 in 1959.
Well, I'm truly amazed, Mr. Hicks, at the wide variety of jobs that you have to do here at the Consulate General.
Well, you know, what you've seen represents really just the highlights of what we do. Most of it is sort of commonplace, I suppose. It's conversations on the telephone, words to visitors, letters on the file, but there's a kind of dedication to what we do, and well, after all, this brings an inward satisfaction. There's no substitution for that.
A telephone, a file, inward satisfaction, and a job being done for Canada.